Everything that has a beginning has an end, Neo. Apart from tech issues, they go on and on and on. They never end. This is the Full Fat Podcast, and I'm Matt Whittle, and I'm joined by Charlie Lee, but unfortunately, I'm not joined by Terry Merkin. You may have realised we took a couple of weeks break. That's because Terry was away, so I just said, you know what, guys, let's not call the whole thing off. Let's give it a little break and come back all nice and refreshed when Terry comes back. And all three of us were just about to start the podcast, and Terry's having mic issues, so the only way we could have recorded all three of us is if she had an echoing mic, which we just couldn't do. It sounded terrible. So yeah, you've just got an all-white and male podcast this week. I'm sorry to say. I apologise, and there's nothing I can really do about it. But yeah, rest assured, Terry will be back. Yeah, Terry will be back next week. She was meant to be back this week. This is so annoying. Yeah. It makes no sense that we took the gap. We could have just done the two of us for a couple of weeks.
I mean, there was one little gap, part of the gap, where we was somewhere, Matt, wasn't we? We also were somewhere. Very special.
That's true.
And,
where was that?
That was...
I'm not following. No, I'm following.
That was Leicester Square Cinema, where we went to see Frightfest, didn't we?
Yes, we did. We went to see Frightfest the movie. Directed by Paul McAvoy.
Paul Oh, shout out to the legend, Paul McAvoy.
Oh, my man. I thought it was a pretty terrific Frightfest. Well, as it usually is, organised by the guys. But this year, I thought, I think we had a much more consistent time than when we went in 2019. And 100%. There was a lot of bangers. What would you say was in your top 5?
What was in my top 5? I know for sure that my number 1 for me was Coming Home in the Dark, which is a New Zealand movie that should be coming out soon, I imagine, over here. But a fantastic movie. Do you want me to give a little synopsis, maybe? Little premise.
Oh, mate, I could listen to this movie all day long. Yeah. So yeah, give the people at home a synopsis.
I think all I can give them for the synopsis of this fucking great movie is that basically a family go sort of like hiking or camping in the middle of like this outback, I guess, in New Zealand, like this where there's loads of mountains and greenery, and they are kidnapped by 2 men. Now, that is all I'm going to say, because I think any more than that ruins it, and I think you should go in as blind as possible. But, yeah, what a treat that movie was. What an absolute treat.
It was one of those movies that you see at Frightfest that's so late at night, you sometimes contemplate, should we just get the train back? And particularly this year, because there's no night tube because of COVID still. So, yeah, it was a nightmare to get back. So, you get to like the 1 o'clock screen or whatever, and you're like, we've seen a lot today. We've seen like 6 films. Maybe we should skip it. And then you come out of it, and you're like, I'm so fucking glad we did not miss that. That was one of the best, if not, as you say, the best thing I saw at the festival. Exhilarating from start to finish. And you're so right. It's one of those movies that I want to talk about, like, so many parts of it, but I think it would spoil it for someone who's intending to watch it.
100%.
But yeah, 100%. One thing I will give away that I thought was fantastic is the guy that plays the villain is J. Jonah Jameson's son, who gets stood up by Mary Jane at the end of Spider-Man 2, and he's playing a villain, and it is an unrecognisable performance.
He's fucking phenomenal in it, and I think it's almost like one of those performances where I feel like he got excited by it, even just watching it, because it's like, I feel like this was the performance he's probably been looking for in terms of it. He's really got to show his acting chops, and I think he's so good in it. Like, he's almost like iconic in the role, and I'm excited to see what he does next almost now. I hope people see this movie and hire him more.
Yeah, me too. And the director's got like a deal now to adapt. I think it's a book written by the writer of World War Z.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I think it's to do with some sort of like mythology. I remember reading about it when we came out of Frightfest.
Yeah, I think
I need to see what this guy's doing next.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I forget the details, so forgive me. But yeah, Coming Home in the Dark, I'd 100% check that out. I know another film that we both loved was Slapface.
Slapface was fantastic.
Yeah, shall I go for the little premise for this one?
Yeah, I think so. You take this one.
It's basically like what if you were to befriend a ghost that's not so Casper the Friendly Ghost and may in fact be a possible demonic entity that's killing people in the town? It's incredibly charming and it's funny, and you actually feel for the relationship between the kid and the monster.
Yep.
But it also maintains being a straight horror flick, and it's such an interesting movie because you're simultaneously terrified, but you also feel sorry for that creature in a way that it's not like cutesy and misunderstood. Like, you're actually perpetually afraid because you don't understand its motivations.
Yep, 100%.
Would you say? And also, like, I think some of the writing for the human characters and the dynamics between them, like his brother and the brother's girlfriend, and the police officers, was really nicely done. And also the kids' school crush and the bullies.
Every character
all of that,
I thought
fantastic.
was really like in depth. I feel like they all had something about them. They all, like, no character was really like just given like an archetypical role. Do you know what I mean? Like, they all had. They all felt alive. Do you know what I mean?
They all had interesting contradictions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
And I think it ends exactly where it needs to. Yeah, pretty perfect, I'd say.
Definitely.
I think we should talk about the sadness.
Mate, the sadness. The sadness. Possibly one of my favourites, just from the sheer insanity of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, this essentially is a film that's set. It's set during the pandemic, isn't it? And the pandemic.
But it's not the same pandemic, is it? It's just a different pandemic.
No, well, they don't specify.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
They don't specify
yeah.
corona or anything like that. But they just say they're in a pandemic. Do you know what I mean? And there's been a virus that's hit, sort of thing.
It's handled a bit like In the Earth, isn't it?
Yes, and then it mutates. And it turns everyone into murderous rapists, I guess. There's no other way to put it, really, is there?
It's a bit similar to that comic that good old, I'm going to shout him out, Liam Battersby.
Yes.
Used to get you to read.
He did.
Wonder what he's doing now.
Called Crossed, isn't it? It's quite similar to that, if anyone who knows that comic.
Yeah, it is similar to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an absolutely evil movie.
Demented, I think, is the word.
Yeah, and it's horrific, and it perpetually goes down every road that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
And it does not hold back. And also, there's a particular character. I don't know how much to spoil with these things. But there's a character towards the end that I think might be the single best character of Frightfest that year for me.
100%, I agree with you there. He was. I keep saying 100%, but it's because I do 100% agree. It's him as a character. It's, again, we don't want to say anything, but he's so interesting. He has such an interesting contradiction, but also you understanding why he does what he does.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's seen it, knows what we're talking about. But I think underneath it all, it's a very. What I liked about it was a very sort of stripped back story in terms of it's just these two characters. This couple, they're split apart. They need to try and find each other before they get killed by everyone who's gone mad. Essentially, it is mental, it is fucked up, but it's been a while since I felt that uncomfortable in a cinema in the best possible way I could mean that.
and I think it takes the mission statement that horror should make you uncomfortable and takes it as far as it can be taken.
Definitely.
And I just there's images in that movie that I will never unsee.
No, never. That was fantastic. I was gonna say, Matt, I think the next one we should probably bring up was another one that we're a big fan of, which is The Show. Do you want to talk to them about?
Oh yeah, you know what is really frustrating about this is because we've done it a few weeks after Frightfest now. There's going to be so many good ones that I'm going to completely forget. And then it's going to be like, oh, shit, I wish I'd
Don't worry,
that.
My good friend. I have a list of everything we saw. Well, everything I
saw.
So
okay.
It, man. I mean, it's all good.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so glad you said that, because I was literally in my head thinking, like, oh my god, what am I going to say next? The Show, Alan Moore's very first screenplay.
Yep.
and yeah, I loved it. It's set in Northampton with a character called Dennis, who is a hitman. He's on the hunt for a MacGuffin. And again, it's one of those movies like I don't really want to say too much more. An exit technician. He's an exit technician. It's a graphic novel come to life. It features vampires, superheroes, crooks, the supernatural, magical reality, and some hilarious moments. And it's like a modern day British noir, isn't it? So, yeah, would you say I've summed that up pretty well?
I think so. It's quite difficult one to like spoil.
If you're a fan of, if you're a fan of Alan Moore in any way, shape, or form, please go and see it. In fact, you know what? I really want to talk about it. I'm going to spoil one aspect of the show, and that's the only spoiler I want to do for the Frightfest movies. Yeah. So you know, if you're watching this, the time code's going to come up, or you're going to hear me say the time code to skip to if you don't want the show spoiled. Right, okay, you've been warned. Okay, this movie is literally Dennis the Menace the movie.
It's incredible.
And it's fucking awesome. And yeah, if you think I'm joking there, I'm not. He's revealed as this hitman that has these red and black striped outfits, and he has the exact same hair, and then you find out his name's Dennis, and there's this theme that runs throughout the movie that he kind of surmises at the end about, like, you know, I can be anything, I can represent lots of different things depending on what the story requires, and it's making this fantastic point, isn't it, about, like, you know, Dennis the Menace is kind of a forgotten comic staple, isn't he? It's like the Beano's quite dated, and they've taken him and put him in a different setting and made him a hitman. You know, it's
exit technician.
Exit technician. It's such a clever idea, because, well, I mean, without going into detail too much, the rest of the movie kind of is about the power of storytelling, isn't it? And making Dennis the Menace, almost in a gritty reboot, Dennis the Menace, the main character. I also think, you know, when you consider someone like Alan Moore, who is really staunchly against superhero adaptations, and the boom that it has enjoyed over the last 20 years, makes it even more interesting. But yeah, I just love that so much. Like, right down to the slingshot. It's literally, what if Dennis the Menace grew up? He would become a hitman, obviously, because of Menace.
Exactly, yeah. I thought that was so clever, and I liked that it's revealed throughout. Because we were sitting there like, his name's Dennis, and he's got the Dennis the Menace top. No, and then, oh no, they actually commit to it. Like, fully, I'd be like, that's so good. That's so good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. A couple of things I just wanted to squeeze by you, because I want you to watch them, that I saw on the Sunday when you were at a wedding.
Oh yeah, of course.
King Knight, really, really funny. It's got Matthew Gray Grubler. Oh yeah. The criminal minds guy that, you know, you've probably fingered yourself to, is
I have.
Yeah, he's playing. I knew it. He's playing like this leader of a witches' coven with his girlfriend, and so, like, it's kind of like a non-plot hangout movie with them about him sort of rediscovering himself, and he goes on this spiritual journey. But it's so funny. You know, like like conversations between them and their coven about, like, oh, you know, I want to practice some safe blood magic, so can you sterilize that needle? Oh, where was the last time I found that thing that should sterilize? Oh wait, it's with my menstrual pads, but I used them. I'm sure I can find them. Like, stuff like that, and like the audience was just like, oh, I don't want to clean that. It was good. I highly recommend you check that out. The other thing I think you should definitely check out is No Man of God, the Ted Bundy movie with Elijah Wood. Luke Kirby as Ted Bundy is pitch perfect casting. Not only does he look like him, but the entire super screen was chilled to the bone. And all he's doing is talking. You know what I mean? It's just mind huntering.
It's the best stuff.
with Elijah Wood. But yeah, it's to say it's mind huntering would be to do it as disservice, because it's not derivative of Mindhunter, but it is that same kind of premise.
Yes. But very Silence of the Lambs, talking to the bad guy, getting that creepy vibes kind of thing.
It's a film about why he did it, not how he did it. But yeah, that was fucking incredible. And John and the Hole was also another one which I know you would have loved. John on the Hole, for those that haven't heard of it, it's about a kid who throws his parents and sister down a hole in their back garden and then proceeds to leave them there whilst he just gets on with his life. And it's kind of like, if you were to I was describing it to a friend, and the friend quite rightfully was like, that sounds really creepy, like I was going through the beats with them. And I was like, no, it's if you watched it, it's not necessarily creepy. Some of it's a bit eerie, but it's more kind of humorous, and it's more kind of like, the enjoyment is the irony of it, in that, like, that's all the things he does are things that you would do as a kid. You know, like when you thought, oh, I'm going to run away from home, or, oh, you know, my parents aren't going to be here, like this, I'm going to do all this cool shit. And it's like, and it plays out all those beats, and what would actually happen if you were to do that. And it's really funny for that. But
it's a
fantastic film.
So I really want to see it.
Yeah, no, I think you'd really enjoy that one. No, I think there was a few other things I saw on Sunday, but they've gone out of my head now. So, but yeah, they can't have been as good as those. So.
Yeah, no, they were the ones that I remember you mentioning as like the standouts. The ones I'm most excited about. I think the other one there's two more, or three more I think we need to speak about before the others, you know, don't necessarily need to be spoken about. And the one of them I think is Sweetie You Won't Believe It, which in my money was fucking great. This was like a comedy horror, I guess, set in like Thailand, I believe. It's a Thailand production. Pretty sure it's Thailand.
Was that the Kazakhstan one?
Oh no, yeah, sorry, yeah, it's Kazakhstan. You're right. Why did I think it was Thailand? I think that was another one that was on there. I think that was probably the saddest thing. But yeah, so yeah, it was a Kazakhstan production, and this was one of the funniest things we saw. I thought the premise is essentially about a group of friends. One of them has a pregnant wife who could be due at any moment, and instead of staying with his wife, he decides to go on a fishing trip. And on this fishing trip, him and his friends accidentally witness gangsters assassinate someone. Therefore, that means that the gangsters now want to kill him and his friends for witnessing them kill someone. But along the way, they also kill someone's dog. And the dog of the person they kill is... Let's describe him as a super-powered John Wick. So now you have these three stories where you have like this demon John Wick character who's trying to kill these gangsters. And the gangsters are trying to kill these three innocent lads who have gone on a fishing trip. And it is an absolute blast from start to finish. It has it has what I like about Abbott and Costello films, and like in the sense that the horror stuff, like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, for example, like the horror stuff is scary, and then the funny stuff is really funny. And I think that's what I loved about it. Like it doesn't take itself too seriously at times, but then also gives you enough creepy moments to be on the edge of your seat. I had a lot of fun with this one. No,
I agree. I really liked that it was like comedy characters getting thrown into a straight horror film. Yeah. And like there's a particular scene I'm thinking of where like it's so funny, but the actual threat is and the thought of it, and like if you were actually there, it's like there's nothing funny about this. But you're still rolling around the floor laughing. You're still ruffle. We were literally rolling on the floor laughing in the cinema. It was that funny. Everyone in the screening was. That I really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed Brain Freeze.
Brain Freeze was good fun as well. That was good fun.
It's about like this kind of these rich people with their golf course. They're testing out this like new kind of fertilizer, and it like basically ends up causing a zombie apocalypse in the city. But again, it was one of those movies that perfectly balanced the horror with the comedy. And also there was some really good revamps on the traditional idea of what a zombie could be, particularly in the third act, that have really stayed with me. And also like it's one of those horror movies from the perspective of a kid trying to survive, and it features like the kids kind of making decisions sometimes that you're like, that's so stupid but wonderful, because if I was a kid then I would have definitely done that as well.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. No, that was really good fun. I enjoyed that. I think the other two we have left to talk about would be Ultrasound, which I think is another one that's really difficult to give the premise of without spoiling it. And I think if you gave the premise of it, it kind of sounds... I think it's quite a hard movie to market, and I find a lot of the time Frightfest has a lot of those films where like they're quite hard to sell on paper without giving away points that kind of make the movie. And I think that this is definitely one of them. So I think if I was to break this down, it's going to sound...
I've got a way to pitch it.
I've got a way to pitch it. Fantastic.
Okay. So basically, the guy from Mad Men that was married to Alison Brie, but for some reason always cheated on her with Elizabeth Moss, is driving down the lane when his car claps out, and he goes to meet a couple who are very lovely to him, and then the husband says that he's a cuck, and he would love it if Mad Men cucked him and went upstairs and fucked his wife. So Mad Men then goes upstairs and has a talk with the wife, and he's not sure whether or not he's going to have sex with her and be the cucker in this cuckold fantasy. Would you say... I feel like that's as much as you need to say about the movie.
It is, but it's funny, isn't it? Because it's like, it's also nothing to do with what the movie is about at the same time, which is what I think's so difficult about the film. Like, that's the setup, isn't it? So that's all you can give. But
it's based on a graphic novel, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the only thing we can say is it goes in kind of a science fiction direction, would you say? I think that's about as far as you can say.
Yeah, and like, obviously, you know, the title, Ultrasound, you can work it out. It's reminded me as well of the other signal-based movie we watched. Was it Broadcast Signal Intrusion?
Intrusion, that's it, yeah.
Yeah. I thought the idea of using broadcast signal intrusions as part of the horror was really interesting. And I think it was one of those movies, I think it's kind of paced a bit odd at the start, but it ends so strongly that it's one of those movies, it doesn't really matter to me by the end. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
And I really liked where it ended up, and I really liked the ending.
Yes. No, I agree. It's got a couple of mixed scenes, but there's some really good scenes that I feel like throughout the movie that keep you back in. You're so intrigued by what's the mystery is. Yeah. And then the kind of reveal of that is also just as interesting, I find. So I think it's worth a watch, definitely.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you thought was like so good we had to mention?
Yeah, there is one last one. And that is The Maid. Which I just realised is the one from Thailand.
Okay,
the other one,
yeah.
Because I knew there was one from Thailand. This one was definitely from Thailand. This one. So yeah, I mean, how can we pitch The Maid without spoiling it as well?
A maid is hired who discovers secrets surrounding the home that she's in and the work she's doing for the little girl who's in her care. And I'd say it's a mystery about the previous maid and the family, coupled with supernatural horror, and again, like there's some really great comedy in it. I think all of the films this year had a much stronger grasp on balancing the two than the last time we went. Yeah.
I think The Maid is like one of the ones that I really want to like rewatch as well.
Yeah.
Like out of all of them, because it's got it goes in loads of directions you don't expect. And it's the movie, it's hard to say, isn't it? It's really difficult. But it's a blast, and stick with it to the end, I think.
I also think it's got it's got one of the best deaths of the festival. One of the 100%. Most horrible, both conceptually and watching it play out, and emotionally, and how much of a betrayal it is shocking.
Yeah. It is a great moment in the movie, and it's a very good plot moment as well as just being a great fucked up death scene.
Yeah. I feel like a clue to what bit that is would be Breaking Bad.
Yes, yes.
You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Even though
I do know what you're saying.
viewers at home, it's got nothing to do with Breaking Bad in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, if you watch the movie and you think you know what I'm talking about from that clue, let us know.
Yep.
And if you want us to pass on anything to Terry, let us know. But yeah, I my mind's gone blank. Is there anything else that you really want to talk about?
What from Frightfest? Yeah. I mean, I think that's it in terms of the big ones.
There's a few clankers that I wanted to talk about, but I don't want to be too mean.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It depends. It depends how much we want to go in. So I did not enjoy
The Changed, and for several reasons. It
might be understatement of the year, but
it's set in a world where everyone is changed, and you'll know that because they say the word changed about 50 times in the movie. And it's a world apocalypse, but there's only ever about 4 people.
Todd. Poor Tony Todd. The man deserved better.
Yeah, Tony Todd is in this movie, and he's playing like one of the corrupted civilians. He has a sizable role, but you can tell that he also walked in, got his money, said his lines, got out. The thing that annoys me about it, actually annoys me about it, is it's not a complete movie.
No,
you're waiting for ages for this beat to happen, and then when it finally does happen, it cuts to black, and you could hear people in the cinema going, "What? Like, was that it?" kind of thing. And then the director, no offense to him, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but one of the things he said was, "Oh yeah, we've got a sequel planned that picks up where this part of the movie leaves off," and I'm like, "Yeah, because it's not a finished movie. Like that's half the movie.
It was first act of the movie."
Yeah. So like, maybe there's a good movie there with both parts. But yeah, I'm not necessarily. I don't think I'll be tuning into the Changed Revolutions necessarily.
The Changed Reloaded.
Changed Reloaded.
Do you want to quickly switch your light on, by the way, just on the side?
Yeah, because it's gotten progressively darker, hasn't it? You guys have seen this in real time.
Woo!
Yeah, fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah, another film I wasn't too keen on, but like I think we're in the minority here because we spoke to a couple of people and they seemed to really enjoy it. It was Retaliators.
Fantastic anthem. Sound of the summer.
I think some really strong ideas in it, and I like a lot of the themes it's exploring. I thought were interesting, but I think ultimately it doesn't know whether it's like self-aware enough that it's parodying the sort of movie that it is, but then it just strays right into like actually being that sort of genre.
That's true.
And also it's melodramatic in a way that is not intentional.
No.
There's a montage of this guy like just screaming because he's in so much pain and angst. It's very entertaining. And also it does that trope that I'm just so sick of like, yeah man, I'm just drinking a beer right here, I'm so caught up about my daughter getting murdered. Other guy, yeah, my wife and daughter, and in fact every woman who I've ever met was murdered by the same guy, and it just makes me so mad. I wish there was a way I could enact righteous violence and justice. Oh, me too, man, me too. Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those.
Yeah, it is one of those. Some fun stuff, some fun ideas, but ultimately, does it all come together?
No, I think it's too melodramatic for its own good.
Yeah, it is too melodramatic. It tries too hard in places. Unfortunately.
And also, like, I think there's some really potentially cool moments.
Definitely.
And there's a really good setup for an action-packed second act that is completely marred by cutting and shaky cam and everything being shot too close up. And I think that is probably the biggest problem with the movie is if that stuff was shot better, I think it'd be way more fun. No,
that's true. That's very true.
But if you're a fan of metal, it's got a pretty decent soundtrack, pretty rocking soundtrack.
I think it's got like Papa Roach and The Hue a part of it. I don't know how they backed those two guys.
Yeah.
But
And you know what? As much as we didn't really enjoy it, we have been humming the
theme,
song.
That is true. We have been singing it quite a bit.
It's just like, you just really want to, like, retaliators. Like, you just feel it surging through you. Do you know what I mean?
You do, you really do. It's our Aliens Fire Team song at the moment, isn't it? Us blasting some xenomorphs.
God, we really have gone through a lot of media since we last did a podcast.
There's a lot to talk about.
So we haven't even touched upon Matrix yet.
We've not even touched upon the Matrix. Also, like, I was gonna maybe mention the Prisoners of a Ghostland, but I wasn't sure if we wanted to talk too much about it. Some cool ideas, some really amazing, incredible sets. Some of the best sets I've seen in a long time. Some really good ideas, but I feel like it doesn't get much better than its opening. It starts super strong, like really, really good. And the premise is really cool, but I feel like it loses itself a bit in the middle.
I completely agree. I think the whole screen was laughing and cracking up at the start, and then it didn't quite keep the same energy. No. And I always think that's telling. Quite a frustrating movie, because I think it's really original in a lot of places, and then other times it's like very conventional storytelling and kind of predictable reveals.
Yes.
And Nick Cage said it's the craziest thing he's ever made. I don't think it's even close, really.
Yeah.
Like, when you really think about it, like I've seen Pig recently, and I'd say that ultimately is crazier.
I think Mandy's crazier.
Mandy's definitely crazier. Yeah. Mandy's definitely crazier, mate. Yeah, depends what sort you get. Yeah.
Bang on it. Yeah. No, definitely.
But yeah, was there anything else?
Frightfest. I mean, there was another.
It's worth mentioning.
Crabs, do you reckon, or no?
Crabs was frustrating. Crabs is like a intentional B movie about killer crabs. That was fun. But what bothered me about that is within the first minute, you perfectly set up the threat, where the threat came from, and the place where the threat is going to be descending, and you're fully like, okay, I'm in. I don't need any more explanation. And then it spends like the next 30 minutes setting up the characters and the mystery of
trying to find
when
out
the crabs are going to attack. Yeah, and we're waiting for the crabs to attack for so long. I would have much preferred if the first two characters we meet, one of them had just become the protagonist and run off and found someone else, been like, oh, the crabs are attacking. Let's move on. Let's find survivors, kind of thing. I think if it had been a bit more of a fast-paced movie that just ran with that premise, it would have been more fun rather than all the extra sci-fi shit that got added in.
Yeah, it had some fun stuff in it, but it kind of it ended up falling into the very thing it was trying to parody, but also, do you know what I mean? It kind of it went too far. They're too far, because I like where it kind of goes, but I feel like it doesn't answer some questions that are posed earlier on as well, I think. Especially with the characters. The characters don't really get a proper resolution, really.
In particular, there's one character relationship which was a pretty horny relationship, actually. It was quite entertaining. And that never gets resolved at all.
No, it doesn't.
So that was a real shame.
That was a shame.
Is there anything else? Oh, you know what I did actually quite like, even though I didn't think it was necessarily a good movie, is I really liked The Last Thing Mary Saw, or at least I think there's a cut of that movie that I would really like that is linear and doesn't structure itself around spoilers. The thing in the title, The Last Thing Mary Saw. So we know that Mary is going to be blind, and that's how the movie starts. So we spend the whole movie knowing that she's going to become blind by the end. I just think that's a mistake. Like, there's some really good stuff in it. That is just kind of ruined by the fact that, like, you know where it's going in certain aspects. Also, I think making the threat puritanical, like, religious values versus the protagonist's homosexuality, I think is horror enough, because those scenes were really, really powerful. And I in particular really liked there's a character in it that gets sent away. It's a period setting. There's a character that gets sent away from the main house. he's a man. He's had relations with a man, and he basically says that we're not trapped. We're not on the outskirts because of our faith. We're here because of like fear and because of like we're being punished. And he reveals that like his knee is like mangled and gangrene where he's been like smashed in for his transgressions. And like I like that's one of the things that stays with you. What doesn't stay with me is all the supernatural shit that comes into it. That doesn't need to be there at all.
I think the best comparison I can try and make in terms of a movie that it should have kind of learnt from is Ken Russell's The Devils. I feel like that deals with similar themes in terms of like there's no supernatural stuff in it. The horror is the time period, the religious beliefs of the time, and how people were treated if they didn't fall into that conformity, and and the horrors of that. And the best stuff in this was that. And all I kept thinking after we watched it, because I remember you saying you was enjoying parts of it, I kept thinking, I think you're going to love The Devils by Ken Russell if you like that stuff. Because to me, it's like, it's one of the most horrific movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It isn't particularly gruesome, and it isn't particularly, it's just so evil, but you could totally see that's how it probably was back then in those time periods sort of thing. And it deals with similar kind of themes of, it's a nun who's kind of sexually repressed in it, and she kind of gets attracted to one of the priests, played by what's his name? Something Reed from Oliver Twist. What's his name? Is it Oliver Reed? What's his name?
There is
the bad guy. I forgot his name. Was that sorry?
No, I don't think I've got it. I don't know.
Just continue. It's got it anyway. I can't remember, but it's one of those things. As soon as we finish the podcast, I'm gonna have it straight away. And that was kind of frustrating when I was watching it, because I was like, it doesn't need the supernatural stuff. Also, there's one thing I want to talk about from Frightfest that it seemed to be the year of, and that was the fucking chapters. The fucking chapters.
Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, yeah. Chapters, I think, are really hard to pull off.
Particularly in horror movies.
Particularly in horror movies, but I think in movies in general, like, once you've chaptered something and said Chapter 1 within the first 10 minutes, you're immediately saying to your audience that at any point they're going to know roughly where they are in the movie. Because once we get to Chapter 2, Chapter 3, it's like, oh, okay, cool, so we're starting a new section. I think if they have like a reason to be divided like that, then great. But a lot of the Frightfest films we saw that were chaptered, you could have just stripped out the chapter placards and it wouldn't have changed anything about the movie or anything about the way that you experience it or how you're meant to feel about the characters.
It's true.
So it's just so superfluous. It's just an aesthetic choice. No. And I think if anything, like, it always makes me feel the pacing.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
The movie should be constantly tricking me into not thinking about it. That's what a great movie does.
I agree.
If you're just gonna be like, oh yeah, Chapter 4, like the calm before the storm, it's like, great, now I know this is the calm before the storm. Not that any of the movies at Frightfest had that as the titles for the chapters, but do you know what I mean? It's like, great, now I know we've still got 40 minutes left.
Yeah,
great.
I think like a good example of when it's done right is usually when it's like, say like in Pulp Fiction, for example, where it's like the Bonnie situation, and then the next thing we see is that situation play out, which we then realise is connected to everything else. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like you're breaking it up, the separate stories, and that works. It doesn't take out the pacing because you don't quite know where you are in the movie.
Those resets are important for the audience to be like, right, now I need to pay attention to this new character and new situation.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like whereas if you're just following one character and one story and you don't need to know why things are divided and there's no time jumps, there's absolutely away, Fly. Piss off, Fly. There's no need to have them chaptered, but yeah.
Definitely.
I digress. I feel like I'm forgetting one gem, or one massive stinker, but I can't think right now. So I think
we'll save it for next week if we can think of it.
But overall, I think I didn't enjoy the changed, I must admit.
No,
but
definitely not.
I do think the only that's probably like one of the only films I actually say I strongly disliked. I think most of the films this year had a really, like, even the ones that I don't think quite worked had some really interesting things in them, and some of them were made on such impressively small budgets.
Definitely.
it's a real it's a real wonder that some of them got made. I've just remembered the only film I actually do want to say that I did hate as well is The Sound of Violence.
Oh, that one. I thought you were going to say else.
Oh, something else.
Yeah.
What could that be?
I think the worst film I saw at Frightfest, which was Off Season.
Oh my lord, yeah, that was bad. That was bad. Do you want to? Should we do that first or?
Oh, if you wanna.
Yeah. So Off Season is about this couple that go to a town that is. Well, no, you know what? I was about to say I don't want to spoil it within. The movie tells you within the first 10 minutes exactly what is going on. Exactly what's going on. The main character says, "Yeah, my mum once told me this thing about this island," and just proceeds to tell you everything. And then the rest of the movie is her. She loses her husband very quickly, as is common in these movies. And then she wanders around. Literally just random scenes of her walking around the town. There's no one there half the time, and she's just going from scare to scare. And should I say jump scare to jump scare? It's not like well-made scares. It's literally just like she's walking around the town, something loud.
Yeah.
And then she does this for like another 30 minutes trying to escape the town. That doesn't work. And then she sees Cthulhu and she's under the spell, and then she stays in the town. Sorry, I ruined it actually. I've ruined the whole thing. But it's...
They kind of tell you it all.
They tell you it all, and there's no characters. And it's just so thoroughly unstructured. It's an absolute mess.
Yeah. It had chapters as well, didn't it? Or am I going crazy? I can't remember, but I feel like it did.
I can't remember. I was worried from the start when it was just a single actor talking to camera, saying some like stock generic horror shit, and then she's like, cut to black title, and I was like, that's not an opening. You've just pointed the camera in front of someone. I just didn't enjoy it at all. And also, like, I thought the score was so incredibly intrusive. It actually got to the point where it was just piercing your ears for 90 minutes. There was no quiet moments, and when there's no quiet moments, there's no loud moments.
It was one of those films that like tell you to be scared by just doing very loud music. Wasn't it? Like, every time there was really loud music, it was like, but what I'm seeing on screen is not frightening at all. Like, nothing's happening, but the music's telling me there is something happening.
Also, I actually think the concept of an island that historically couldn't feed its people had to make a deal with a sea monster
is great.
Heavenly Blood to be Cthulhu. Yeah, so they could get fish and but you know, the catches they would forever, and all their descendants would give over their souls. Great idea, but it's not executed in any way, really, is it? Like, what it devolves into is literally, it feels like you're watching Silent Hill on the PS1. She's running around, there's fog everywhere, she's trying a door, then she goes to another place, tries that door. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just that. That's all it is.
It doesn't even deliver on the scares, really.
No. And also, I think it makes a great disservice as soon as it cuts the husband out, because I actually thought some of their exchanges felt quite genuine. There's an argument they have before he dies, where I was like, okay, cool, I'm kind of rooting for them a little bit more, and then it just becomes her running around by herself. There's nothing that she's fighting for.
It doesn't really deliver on its premise either. It's really weird.
No, I didn't enjoy it at all. And I just to wrap up, The Sound of Violence. I thought this one was. You know what was really frustrating about this one is beforehand the director said this main character, I think she's called Alexis. She's going to do things. She's going to do some things, but like I think what's interesting about the movie is like that she's a really likable character, and you understand why she does what she does, and you see that she's doing it for her art and for other reasons. But I feel like that was a really weird thing to say before the movie started, because she is not a likable character at all, and she does some terrible, terrible things that are never unpacked. And it's hard for me to say.
Without ruining
it's hard for me to say about ruining it. Yeah. Do you think you'll watch it?
I won't. So because I mean, you said it wasn't very good, and
what? It's just like there's this kind of theme introduced. Basically, she it's about this woman that she sees like color, and she feels like complete when she murders through music, essentially. And she starts murdering people to complete her music. But it's not like a movie where it's a character we care about that has a tragic downfall, and by the end she ends up like, falling down. She's a bit of a knob from the start. Like, she literally she finds this homeless guy and captures him and then tortures him, and like all of the deaths happen to innocent people that you don't know anything about, that she's just doing these like Saw-esque experiments on, which by the way, she's a student, she has no engineering skills, it's never explained why she has all these saw traps set up, but she's just murdering people that you're, and the movie doesn't hang a lantern on her morality really in any satisfying way, so you're just watching it and you're like, what? Why'd she just kill that homeless guy? There's a moment early on where this guy is being really touchy-feely with her, and he sort of won't take no for an answer. And it turns out it's a dream, but in this dream, he accidentally gets hit by a car, and she sees all the colours. And when that happened, I was like, oh, okay, so I see, like, the movie's going to go down this route of, like, she's going to kill, like, people that have wronged her, or people that there's going to be like kind of like an assault allegory here, or she's going to be targeting guys that exhibit this behaviour. Do you know what I mean? A bit promising young woman, that sort of thing. Yeah. But no, that's never picked up on again. And in fact, he's the only person that gets murdered in the whole movie that gives you any reason to expect him to like deserve to die. Do you know what I mean? Like, he does something bad and then he gets killed. But all the other murder victims, they're completely innocent. Like, they just pass us by.
Nasty.
It is unnecessarily nasty, and also like I just don't think it doesn't unpack what it means for her to be doing all this terrible stuff. And also there's just weird things in it. Like, she'll kill someone, right? Leave the crime scene, and she'll leave everything there, literally everything. At one point she kills a guy in a recording booth that's on her university campus, and then the next scene the police are there, and like she's left all the blood everywhere, the guy's just there, like she's not done anything to clean it up, and like obviously they're just going to track her down by the end because she keeps leaving the crime scene like completely untampered. And there's like a relationship. Like it was thought through properly. No, I think it was conceived with some really inventive deaths involving musical instruments, and then a story was fitted around it. I see, yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think it, like, the movie's not interested in discussing who Alexis is as a person. It's just interested in getting you to those kills. And the idea that we're supposed to find her likeable, but she's doing questionable things, is so wafer thin and shallow and stretched out across the movie that it barely registers. I feel like I've been really harsh on it, and I'm sorry if anyone that's working on it is watching this. I don't know why they would be. No one's watching this. But yeah, like, piss off, Fly. It just really didn't work for me, and I found it baffling, the route it took.
Yeah, that's what's hard when you see a film like that, Frightfest. You're like, how did this script get made? Like, the script's kind of missing fundamental things.
But I feel like it got made on the... Sorry, go on.
So I was going to say, like, you're told by screenwriting books that you need to have these things. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it always baffles me when I see a script that doesn't really have even like the bare minimum of some of this
stuff. I don't think it was that with this one, because I do think it's quite well structured.
The Changed, I think, is a bit like that.
The Change is definitely like that, yeah. Because it's not a full movie. And off-season. Yeah, no, I agree. That they're structurally they're messes. This wasn't that. It was just that, you know, like, it wants you to care about a character that is so thoroughly unlikable. Yeah, and she just murders a homeless guy like that, and that's one of the early kills. And I was just sort of like, mad. What? And there's a moment when she kills that guy where she like turns around and she looks at him, and you're sort of meant to take it as like, oh, she's questioning whether what she did is right. But it's like, it's so cartoony because she literally tortures him to death. It's the equivalent of the Saw guy, Jigsaw, putting you in a saw trap, and he knows what the saw trap's going to do, and then you get like buttered across the room, and he's like, it's like, no, what did you expect? Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, like maybe I just didn't get it.
Yeah. Weren't for you.
It weren't for me, no. But yeah, something that is for me is.
Oh yeah.
You're excited. I'm not sure what route you think I'm going to go down though. Is it going to be Aliens Fireteam or Matrix Resurrections?
I mean, I'll take both, baby.
You'll take both?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Aliens Fireteam trailer has just dropped, and Neo is back. He's got the Xenomorphs in tow, and Trinity's back, and also the Flamethrower's pretty sweet, as is the Technician class. I'm just going to word salad both of them together, see how far I can take it. No, I sound like Matt Goss. But yeah, the Matrix Resurrections.
After all these years, to be going back to where it all started. Back to the Matrix.
I'm very hyped. I think the trailer is pretty sweet, and I think it's intrigued me. I think it's asked a lot of the right questions. I think it's the right direction to take what is essentially like part one of a new trilogy, but also it's part four. Like, it doesn't seem like it's going to disavow what's come before. It feels like it's going to build upon it and be an exciting fresh start. Yeah, I just hope that the trailer hasn't led us astray, essentially. That's my take on it.
I hope so too. Yeah, I mean, initially it's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's like, you don't know. It's been so long since we've seen these characters, and for me, like, the first Matrix movie is probably in my top 20 favorite films of all time. Like, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. It's structurally, everything about it I find near perfection, if not perfection. And then obviously it has, its sequels, which have good moments in them, but ultimately kind of are poorly executed at times. And now we're getting this fourth one, and I think what's difficult when I first watched the trailer was like, oh, this doesn't look like the Matrix. Just, do you know what I mean? In terms of it looks a lot like the Wachowski's later stuff. That being said, I do think it's interesting that it does look more like that. I mean, people have pointed out, haven't they, that like it looks kind of like the world at the end of the last Matrix movie.
Yeah.
And that makes me excited. My biggest concern is, and I know you might, I think this is where we're going to have a bit of a possible debate. My biggest concern is that one of my favourite aspects of The Matrix is the fight scenes, all right? And that's not everything about the movie, that's not everything about the movie. But the fact that this doesn't have Yuen Won Ping, the fact that the camera is less locked off like it is in the others, like Bill Pope not being there, and the fact that there's more telekinesis stuff, I don't mind it too much. I mean, I imagine that we might get more of the kicky punchy stuff, I guess, with the side characters, but it does feel like Neo is not going to be doing that stuff as much.
Yeah. I agree with you. I am sad there's no Wu Ping and no Bill Pope.
Yeah.
And that is evident, unfortunately. But I also think Keanu's getting on a bit, and I know he does a lot of hand-to-hand stuff in John Wick, but I do think like the Matrix fights, they're more fantastical, they're more frantic, and it seems a lot more cardio based. And it's a lot of wire work and all that sort of stuff. I'm not incredibly surprised that it seems like his character's going to be doing more like visual effects type stuff, like pushing people and stopping bullets and all that kind of thing. But I think I've had 3 movies of Neo doing that, so it's okay. I still think we're gonna get hand to hand with Neo, but I just think it's gonna be like, let's say the sequels are 80% Neo punchy punch, 20% him stopping bullets. I think it's gonna be more like 60% him stopping bullets and doing telekinesis, 40% him punching people.
Yeah, I can see
that. But the younger characters will give us, as is kind of evident from the trailer with Jessica Henwick and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, like they're doing all the the twisty anti-gravity stuff and the jumping over cars and that sort of stuff. So I do think we're going to get more classical Matrix action in it, even if it's not necessarily Keanu and Trinity.
I think the only thing that kind of concerns me is that there's a couple of shots in the trailer. I mean, obviously we're picking apart a small trailer. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is, but as we do. And there's a couple of shots where I'm like, I hope the fight scenes are shot well and not like how a lot of things are now. I think another thing that kind of concerns me is the fact that it kind of does look a bit like John Wick in terms of some of its grading and stuff, as opposed to like the Matrix stuff. And someone even said to me, who's like just a casual fan of movies, was like, "Oh, it looks like John Wick." And like, do you know what I mean? He didn't even. He's not someone who like, particularly watches a lot of movies and stuff. And I was like, I thought that was interesting. And they were like, "Oh yeah, it's John Wick. Like he just looks like John Wick." And I was hoping that they would just steer completely from that to not be compared to it, because I think a lot of things are struggling to get away from that at the moment. But that being said, I'm really intrigued by some. I do think some of the visuals look good. I do think it looks visually nice. I mean, it's by the director of photography of The Thin Red Line, I believe, which is a gorgeous Terrence Malick film.
Names escaped me, but yeah.
Yes, names escaped me. But yeah, so I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued. I do think everything I saw story-wise, I think looks good. Or could be good. Do you know what I mean? With the little we have and what people are speculating. People are complaining about Yahya Abdul-Mateen being Morpheus. I think it's a phenomenal casting decision.
Fucking awesome. He looks great.
I think the movie's going to give a reason as to why Morpheus isn't back. There's a reason that Lana Wachowski didn't ask him to come back. I don't think they would have just done that for no reason. I think there's going to be...
Yeah. It's because of his canonical death in The Matrix Online. Duh.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I think young Morpheus looks fucking A. And I'm excited for it. I don't mind necessarily too much that it doesn't look like the kind of green classical noir-y Matrix. Because within the story, as you say, it resets. Yeah. It resets at the end of Revolutions, and if you look at that final shot of Revolutions, where it's like very green, blue, and orange, that aesthetic has definitely carried over into not only the shots we've seen, but also the marketing. Like at the end, when the trailer comes up, it's those colours. So I do think it's implicitly going to be that this Matrix isn't as green. However, as this reality seems to break down, the shots that from what I can presume is the third act, when it seems like the regular citizens are running amok. Like they're almost like zombified. That stuff all looks a lot more like the old Matrix.
More noir,
like
right?
Yeah, like a lot more blacks, a lot more greens, a lot moodier. So I'm thinking, I wouldn't be convinced if the destabilization of this Matrix makes it look more like the original Matrix towards the end, or maybe that Matrix that exists as a program. And the characters travel to it, and when they travel to it, it looks like how the old Matrix did. I think that would be cool, because then it's explicitly clear why it looks different.
Yes, it's very interesting. I think the thing. Correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I would say probably the most interesting part of the trailer to me is the fact that the scene in the first Matrix, where Neo touches the mirror and it all goes over him, is being projected on a wall.
Yeah.
In that. I think that's single-handedly the most intriguing thing to me about the movie. About the trailer, sorry.
I touched on it a little bit on my video, which probably is out by the time you're watching this or hearing this. But yeah, like, I know a couple of other people have listed this online, but like, people are thinking it might be a movie within a movie. And I think that's almost definitely what it's going to be, because Cypher says in the first movie, I want to be someone important, like an actor. And in this, Neo, he's clearly a wealthy guy who has no direction. Jonathan Groff, when he's talking about, we're getting back to the Matrix, it sounds like... Yeah, it sounds like his agent, who is talking to an actor who has had an okay career but is not particularly satisfied, and that was the film that made him, and now his agent is forcing him to go, why don't you do Matrix 2? And I think that's what's being projected is the first Matrix film. This also makes sense when you think about the fact that if the machines wanted to subjugate him, they would give him a cushy life, and him starring in the Matrix is like an achievement, isn't it? But they wouldn't want to obviously make The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions films within that world, because that tells the story of how he brings about peace and beats the machines. So it would make perfect sense that there is no Matrix 2 and 3 in this fake world. And also I think it's a fun meta way of calling out on people that are like, I really want this to be Matrix 2, not Matrix 4. Do you know what I mean? Like a meta way.
Yeah, definitely. I think also that it's kind of like a good way of keeping him within the Matrix, in that he probably might have thoughts or flashbacks in his head to, I don't know how it works completely, but like to that time of when that did happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's a clever way of being like, it did happen. You filmed those scenes. Do you know what I mean?
Like they've hidden his life in plain sight by making the film part of it. Yeah. I think at the very least, it's just going to be projected because, like we've seen in previous Matrix movies, images from previous movies being put on screens. Like in the architect's room, he's got shots of the first Matrix, cut and edited like the first Matrix playing behind him. So it could just be something as simple as the machines are projecting it, and it's supposed to be like his memories.
I was going to say, would it be something like one of the supporting cast characters, whether it be Morpheus, Jessica Henwick's character, or Trinity, maybe has that footage and is projecting it to him to wake him up, maybe, or something. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it becomes more and more far-fetched when it's not the machines doing it, because I can believe that the machines would have those angles and that edit because they've got full surveillance of the Matrix and could probably there's probably like backup files they could go back and like draw it out.
It's like the architect's room, like you said. I think that's the perfect way to,
because that's already been set up, isn't it, via the architect's room.
Exactly.
But yeah, very intriguing. I'm just excited because I think for the first time since The Force Awakens, there's a massive blockbuster movie coming out that is not based on anything. So therefore, I do not know what all these new characters are going to be or what allegiances they're going to have. Like in much the same way we didn't know where John Boyega or Daisy Ridley were going to align. It's like, Jessica Henwick could be a bad guy. She could be a good guy. It seems like she's a good guy, but we don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like we have no idea, and the trailer could very well be messing with us.
It's true.
In so many ways.
I think the set pieces look great. I think the Wachowskis, this is just done by Lana, but they've always been great at action set pieces. That's never like a problem, I think, in their movies. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's the thing. The fact it is still Lana, does give me hope the action will still be good. Because she still directed it. Like
that is true.
It's a bit of a kick in the teeth to not have the trifecta of Wachowski, Pope, and Wu Ping.
Yeah, that is true. But hopefully, she's learnt enough through her career. I mean, I know that there was an article that came out before the trailer came out that was talking about how Lana went a bit more freehand with on the shots in the day, and it was less like storyboarded and stuff, which kind of worried me at first because I know that the first movie was so intensely storyboarded to the point of like a comic book. But I also know that was because they were trying to sell this movie and show the grandiose of the nature of it, and you can't quite do that with storyboards. So that concerns me in terms of like how it's going to play out as a movie. But like I said, like Tarantino also said that he's got a bit more loose with the camera as he's got older and matured as a filmmaker, which I can imagine. Like as you get on, you feel pretty more comfortable just putting the camera down whilst you're there on set, as opposed to structuring it before. And no, he did that with Once Upon a Hollywood, and that didn't feel any different to anything he's done before. So it could be nothing. But I'm just really intrigued. I'm kind of like I'm hyped, but I'm also trying to keep myself at level and not get too excited, just because it could disappoint. I want to believe, as Neo does.
I think out of the two big December releases, No Way Home is going to be more reliable. But yes. I think this has more potential to be something really exciting.
Yeah, something we haven't seen.
Yeah. Before. Like, as much as it's going to be cool and surreal to see Tugboat and Melina and Defoe, I think we know what to expect from their roles and the way those roles are going to look and the way the movie's going to look. Whereas this could go in so many zany directions, yeah.
And it's exciting to have, like, a true auteur, like, back on screen doing a Matrix movie, an auteur doing a big blockbuster again. It always excites me when that happens. So I'm like, regardless, it's going to be.
And it's been the same amount of time, 22 years since the gap that George Lucas had from the original trilogy to the prequels as
Yeah.
from this, as from Matrix to this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping, I'm hoping it's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's been some time. It's time for another trilogy of Matrix movies.
It is time, and I hope that it's everything we wanted. I'm
Because
excited.
if it is good, imagine the next 5 years,
It'd be so
what that
good,
could
it's good.
entail,
Be so
or longer. They don't need to come out every 2 years. Just bring them out when they're ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else? I think we've spoken for a while this week,
We
haven't
have.
we?
Yeah.
Just haven't stopped chatting shit.
Yeah,
God,
well, it's been
1
like an
hour.
hour. It's been an hour, yeah.
Yeah. God damn, right. If there was anything else we wanted to speak about this week, I feel like we should shelve it to next week.
We'll do it next week.
A quick recap on What If.
What if?
Charlie, you've not been watching them, have you?
I've missed since we last did the podcast, yeah.
Okay, so I liked the third one, the murder mystery of Nick Fury. This is basically more to the audience than you. Should I just look at them? I liked
saw
the one
that
with Nick
one,
Fury.
That's the
Oh, you seen that one now?
that's the one with someone's killing the heroes, essentially.
Yes. Yeah, okay,
yeah,
yeah. Okay, so the one after that, the Sorcerer Supreme one, I didn't really like. I thought the Marvel Zombies one was a real missed opportunity, and I haven't seen the latest one that's come out today. But I still think overall, across 5
I've
episodes...
only got one to watch, just realised. Sorry.
Oh, did you watch the Sorcerer Supreme one?
The Doctor Strange one, we watched it together.
Did we?
Yeah.
They're so forgettable. I think
Yeah,
they're so
yeah,
forgettable.
no.
I think far and away the best episode is still the murder mystery one.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's the only one I've watched twice, and when I saw a review the second time to watch it, I still enjoyed it just as much, if not more.
Yeah.
And I think that one's pretty rewatchable. But
That's
all
a
the
really
rest of them,
clever
I think,
idea.
yeah, no, it was a really clever idea. And also, spoilers, everyone's seen it. The decision to have Hank Pym be the reveal and be the
Genius.
villain, I think's really clever, yeah. Genius,
Yeah.
Mr. Jameson.
Genius.
Because it's taking that what if angle of I believe Hank Pym could have become a very bad man based on how he is in the MCU anyway, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's also a great opportunity to do a Nick Fury-led adventure, which doesn't happen very often. You can cross over different events in other movies in a satisfying way, but also you can show how powerful Ant-Man truly is and how he would fuck up people if he had the lack of morality.
I always like that with superheroes, where it's these superheroes you don't think are that powerful, but if they were evil, they would be super powerful because of, their morality is holding them back, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a character called Kane in the Spider-Man comics who can rip people's faces off with his sticky hands.
Yeah,
And stuff
that's
like that. It's yes, that is awesome.
And that's exactly what would happen if Spider-Man wanted to do that.
But also, I think it's interesting when you give villains heroes power sets, because it also proves how good the hero is, right? Because
Yeah,
it's once you know
exactly.
that Spider-Man could do that, and you know that he doesn't, that adds another layer to him.
Shows how much restraint he's having with his fight or whatever he's doing.
Speaking of restraint, I'm gonna have to restrain myself from waffling on. Should we park it here?
Yeah, let's do it.
This has been the Full Fat Podcast. If you want to find us, just ask. Just bell me.
Yeah.
Just be like,
got
I'd
us on speed
rather
dial.
live. I'd rather live on a two-way street than 15 one-way streets, because when you meet in the middle of a two-way street, two things happen: destruction or the genesis of a new beginning. Would you not say, Charlie?
Yeah, and you have definitely put water on another planet. You brought life to this planet, and the two things have come together to create something new. And
I made a conscious decision, because of Stevie Wonder, not to be superstitious.
I really think the words HOME really personify home.
Really?
And the safety with that, yeah.
Really? And what is it with people not being able to play conkers anymore? Do you not think we should start a petition to get people to play conkers again?
I can live with it.
Yeah, no, I love to play chess, Scotch chess. This is the conversation corner.
I love that the people listening are just like, what the fuck are they going on about?
I don't think we should tell them what it is.
No,
If
I
you
don't
know
think
what
we
it
should.
is,
Put it
if
in
you
the
know what it
comments.
is, yeah. But before we go, I just want to tell you something, dude. I am knackered.
I'm not.